This Ohio Symphony Hour. We invite you to meet a prominent Clevelander or visitor to Cleveland who will present his or her favorite music. Here is your host, Robert Conrad.
Tonight we're going to visit with Dickran Atamian, who was soloist with the Cleveland Orchestra last December, and we're going to hear music by Mendelssohn and Prokofiev as performed by Mr. Atamian with the Cleveland Orchestra. We'll get to this in just a moment, following an opening word from our host, Ohio.
So many people...
Dickran Atamian was soloist with the Cleveland Orchestra last December. Dickran, with a name like that, we would presume that you're something exotic from a foreign country, but you're really from Chicago, are you not?
Right. Well, I'm Armenian, full-blooded.
Do you think that it has helped, your name has helped you, because it obviously stands out?
Yeah, it stands out. It's really not my name. My real name is Dickran Atamian. It's spelled with a T, T-I-G, like tiger. And the T is a D. It's really not correct at all. I found that out when I went to the Soviet Union last year. And I went to Armenia, and they said, well, you're just not pronouncing your name right or spelling it right.
Well, Rebecca Sue had the same problem.
Yeah, it's Americanized. So, But I think it does the job, I guess.
Tell me about your trip to the Soviet Union. Where did you play and what?
It was a short trip. I played in Leningrad with the State Academic Orchestra. I played a recital in Moscow. I played a recital in Armenia and Yerevan and another town called Etchmiadzin, and I played in a couple of towns in Latvia. And it was really an experience. The audiences were incredible.
They always seem to be when Americans come to play. I remember, of course, in 1965, how the Cleveland Orchestra was greeted in the Soviet Union. They just went wild.
I'm sure they did.
But why is that? Because obviously, there are a great number of very talented pianists in the Soviet Union. You would think it would be an everyday occurrence if they would have somebody of talent playing for them. Yeah.
I think that is true. They have a lot of talent, but I think the way we approach music is so radically different.
Tell me about that. What is it?
Okay, well, in my particular instance, I think what they responded to was, as a matter of fact, they told me, a lot of musicians that were present at the concerts, was the fact that, I played with abandon, and a lot of their artists feel like someone is telling them how they have to play, and
somewhat constricted.
Yeah, I attended some concerts there. They sounded constricted. They sounded square. Frankly, I was really impressed with the orchestras there. I thought especially, you won't believe it, but there's a chamber orchestra in Armenia, in Yerevan, the capital, that's absolutely the best I've ever heard. Better than anything I've heard. I couldn't believe it. But then when I heard pianists there, they sounded good, but, they just were not truly inspired. That was just my, observance.
Where else have you been touring lately?
Well, I just played with the Detroit Symphony with David Zinman. I did the Samson No. 2 there. And I did my recital debut in L.A., where I premiered the Rite of Spring for solo piano on the West Coast. They hadn't heard it yet.
You've recorded that, have you not?
Right, for RCA, yeah. And I played recently in Europe. I played in Holland, and I played for NDR Radio in Germany, and a recital in Hamburg, Berlin, Recklinghausen, and I played in The Hague at the Diligencia Theater.
In December, with the Cleveland Orchestra, you played the Mendelssohn Piano Concerto No. 2 with the Cleveland Orchestra and Robert Page. Why did you pick this concerto? It's very seldom played by anybody.
Oh, it's a great piece.
Everybody plays No. 1 if they're going to do Mendelssohn.
Yeah, if they're going to do... There's another concerto, too, There are 3 concertos by Mendelssohn, and Klaus Roy was telling me about that. And it's supposed to be a really huge work. The first movement is supposed to be as long as the first movement of the Emperor or something like that. But it was originally the first piece, so the one, No. 2, is actually the third concerto.
It happens that way occasionally.
But this piece, No. 2, in D minor, is a real virtuoso vehicle. It's much more so than the G minor, actually. It depends on how you play it. You see in program notes, No. 2, neglected. Mendelssohn didn't think much of it. It is an incredible piece, a very passionate piece. It's terrifically lyrical, more so again than the G minor. And also, as far as sheer technical display, the fingers in the D minor, the real filigree work is much more extensive than the G minor. The G minor has more, chordal passage, interlocking octave things and that type of stuff. But I think there's more finger, sheer filigree in the D minor than there is in the G minor.
Do you also play number one?
Yes, but I've never performed it.
We're going to hear your performance of the second piano concerto by Mendelssohn, the first movement anyway, from December 4th at Severance Hall. The Cleveland Orchestra is conducted by Robert Page. Visiting with Dickran Atamian, who was soloist with the Cleveland Orchestra this last December, you mentioned the fact that you performed and recorded The Rite of Spring by Igor Stravinsky. Now, we know of, obviously, the piece in its orchestral version. We know there's also a two-piano version of it. Now, where did you come up with the one-piano version of it?
Well, Sam Raefling decided one day he would just do it. And it went totally unnoticed for years. He did it in 1972. It was published in 75. And Earl Wild gave me a copy of it in 1979. And I learned it very quickly, about 5 months actually, to be exact, because I thought someone else would learn it and do it. But it's a pretty unwieldy score. It's a real tour de force, and no one really wanted to put the time in, I guess. But it's a phenomenal piece on the piano.
What else have you recorded?
I just did an all Chopin album.
For RCA?
Yes, and it's I did some mazurkas, the third ballade, the third scherzo, the A-flat polonaise, and some nocturnes and preludes. And I'm going to record, which may not be for RCA, depends on how we work it out, the Pictures at an Exhibition and Prokofiev's Sixth Sonata for a digital company that could eventually, take it to RCA.
The Rite of Spring was a digital recording, too.
Yes, it was the same man, as a matter of fact, that engaged me from that recording session. We met, and that sort of thing happens these days.
Do you like to record?
Oh, yeah, very much. I don't like to splice or edit. I like to just play it 5 or 6 times and take the best one, because that's the only real honest way of doing it. And you'll also find that, you sit there recording over and over and over, measure by measure, you find a lot more chance for mistakes and, uninspired playing. But if you play it once through and then you just do it again, I think you can get a much better picture of it.
You're in good company. George Sell liked to do things in large hunks.
Hunks, yeah.
And
I think that's good.
Dickran Atamian is our guest, and Dickran, in 1975, you were the first prize winner of the Nuremberg piano competition. Are you a believer in piano competitions?
Well, I think George Bollett said it well. It's a necessary evil. That's what it is, That year is the typical year of any, that competition or any other. There were about 87 pianists, and you have a 1 in 87 chance, unless you know how everyone plays, which you don't. And, it's a gamble, but I think it's very good. You play well under pressure, at least I do. I think most people do when they really have to do it. And this is a point where they have to. It sort of separates the, men from the boys, or whatever they call it. I think it's necessary to have them, but I don't enjoy performing in them.
Did you find that this particular competition they gave a big boost to your career?
I think it started my career. It gave me 2 recitals at Lincoln Center and a date at the Library of Congress and several. As a matter of fact, through that, I got the first date with Cleveland because someone arranged for me to meet Maestro Moselle. And, things like that. I wouldn't say that I think more in terms of launching the Rite of Spring and the recording and PBS coverage that I've gotten in the last couple of years has helped my career more than the competition. I think competitions don't. After the first 2 years, forget it.
You have to deliver.
You have to do it. Yeah, you really have to do it.
Tell me about your educational background. You did go to Oberlin, did you not?
1 year. I was 16 at the time. I left high school early.
I'm impressed.
Well, no, I wasn't saying that for you to be impressed, but I did it because I got sick and tired of practicing 1 hour a day in high school and doing all the homework. So I left high school and just went to Oberlin and studied with John Perry for a year. Then he moved to Texas, and so I moved there, and that's where I got most of my training in Austin.
Tell me about the experience that a soloist has when he comes to town, say here in Cleveland, to give a performance with the Cleveland Orchestra. What is the procedure you go through in the rehearsal? Do you meet first with the conductor and run through the piece and then with the orchestra, or what?
That's exactly right. I met with both in the case of Mr. Mazel and Mr. Page. We met before, and we talked about it a lot, and then I really did a walkthrough of the piece. And then we put it together with the orchestra pretty quickly, as a matter of fact. With an orchestra like this, which I shouldn't say this, but I believe they're the greatest orchestra.
Go right ahead and say it. We have no objection.
No, I'm sure you don't. To me, they're just the epitome of what an orchestra should sound like. They're so incredibly involved in what they're doing, and that's so obvious right from the start. You sit down to play with them, and they're engrossed in it just as you are.
Tell me about your non-musical life. Do you have any? Is there any aspect of your life that is not involved with music?
Well, if you mean hobbies and this sort of thing, the only real hobby I have, unfortunately, is connected with music. I have a couple of music festivals in Texas that I sort of put together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tell us about them.
Well, there's one in Austin where I studied that St. Edward's University started. And I'm the artistic director, and we play chamber music. I've brought George Bollett there, and I brought Hamal Fujiwara and Young Kim, the violinist.
So you're an impresario.
Well, yeah, if you want to call it that. People have called me that. I don't like to be called that. But
what's the other festival?
The other one is in Kerrville, and Rod Kennedy, a local producer there, produces this festival, which started last summer, a 3-day weekend called sort of Classical Camp Out, and people come and camp. Yeah, and they camp out, and, they just lay around while all this music. It's really a phenomenal setting. Actually, the amphitheater is very nice, and it's one of the finest of its type. I mean, it's not just a gimmick. It really works.
Primarily chamber music?
No, everything. That festival, I opened it with a solo recital. Then the next day there was a trio concert and a choral concert. They did the Bach, one of the cantatas. I'm not sure exactly which one. Ravel trio, Schubert B-flat trio, then Mozart concertos. We had an all-Mozart evening and an all-Haydn evening, both orchestral, and David Amram conducted. And it was Leonard Rose played a recital. It was very, very enjoyable.
We know that your repertoire includes the Mendelssohn Second Piano Concerto and the Prokofiev Piano Concerto No. 3. What else do you play?
You mean in terms of concerti?
Yes.
Well, I play both Brahms. I play the other Mendelssohn. I play the Liszt Totentanz. I play about 8 Mozart concertos, all the Beethovens plus the choral fantasy.
Do you find that you're performing more with orchestra or in recital?
Well, at this point, recital, sorry. It takes time, to build a career, for all the managers to know you. And I've played with some orchestras, but mostly recitals at this point.
Do you have a preference for one over the other?
No, I think they're equally enjoyable.
Depends on what you're doing at the time.
Yeah, it really does. I've played with some interesting conductors with not so good orchestras, but then I've played like with Cleveland twice now, and in Detroit. David Zinman was a real experience. I enjoyed that. But most of the conductors I've worked with were with lesser orchestras, but some very fine people.
We're going to hear your performance of the Piano Concerto No. 3 by Prokofiev, which you did with the Cleveland Orchestra and Lauren Mazel on the 28th of April, 1978.